Hi everybody and welcome to another live stream with me, Martin Twycross. I've called this live stream a mediumship clinic. It's a title I've been using for over 10 years now for my live question answers, so I thought we'd bring it to this platform as well. So the class tonight is an opportunity for you to ask me any questions you have about mediumship, development and related topics. So welcome to everyone who's joined us. And also welcome to everyone who's watching this on the replay, because I know quite a lot of you watch it on the replay as well. If you join it in person, you obviously get a chance to ask your question. If you join it on the replay, then you're stuck with the questions that other people have asked, of course. So I hope you can all see and hear me okay. If you'd like to type in the chat as well, let me know, that would be great. I'll make sure that everything's functioning okay. I'm using a different cam today, so I'd like to make sure it's actually working. If you have any questions, you can also load them in the chat as well. That would be wonderful too. So we can load up all the questions in the chat and I'll work through them one at a time. So I'm hoping somebody will post something good you can see and hear me. Fantastic. So since my last live stream as well, just to let you know the videos that I put out there, I've put out a video, Can Anyone Be a Medium? Which explains all about how mediumship is an ability that we all have to varying degrees, although if you have it to a strong degree, you may say you're gifted. That's a short summary of it, but there's a lot more to it than that, so do check it out. I also put up a talk on seeing a greater reality, where I talk about the purpose of mediumship is to give us glimpses into a greater understanding of our true spiritual nature. So again, fascinating chat, fascinating talk if you want to check that one out. They're both on my channel, latest additions to my channel. So welcome Stacey, Karen and Catherine, lovely to see you. I'm also at the moment running a holiday sale that started on Boxing Day and runs till the 2nd of January. Again, you can purchase a whole bunch of products from my store. A whole bunch of products are discounted, including Sitting in the Power, Rainbow Journey audios, plus all my pre-recorded courses, plus the study program modules. So do check that out. I'll put a link to that in the chat box at the very top, pinned to the top, and I'll put a link to it as well in the description. So I will be raising my prices actually in once the sale ends. When the sale ends, the prices will be going up because I've not raised them for quite some years, so it's time to go up. So if anyone's interested in getting a module or getting a pre-recorded course, now's your chance to get them while they're still cheaper. You'll never get this price again. Advert over. Amy, love your study modules, fabulous. And welcome to Mona as well. If you're interested in my latest course, which is Better Platform Mediumship, we've had class 1 already. Class 2 is going ahead this weekend. So if you want to sign up for that one as well, you'd get one class as a replay. The other 3 you can come in person. If you can't attend in person, I do recordings and replays of all the classes anyway. So do check that one out as well. So I can see there's a few questions coming in as well. I do have a couple of questions that I've carried over from previous classes that I missed. So I'm going to start with those and I'm going to work my way through all the questions building up in the chat box. And also, if you would like to get your question answered first, then you can use Super Chat if you know how to use that. If you're logged into YouTube, at the bottom you'll see a little $ that you can make a donation and use Super Chat. If you ask a question through Super Chat, I will answer your question next. So you do get preferential treatment. Also, if you want to make a donation to support the channel, you can do that as well through PayPal. Again, there's a link pinned at the top of the chat, and there's also a link in the description. So a question: when sitting in meditation, I felt as if I was suddenly falling like a rock. Is this normal, and what does it mean? Now, basically what that is it's when we're moving into certain aspects of the altered state, that can happen. It suddenly feels like you're dropping through thin air, you're falling like a rock, you're falling like a stone, and it's pretty common. Many people will have experienced that when you go to sleep. Sometimes when you're going to sleep, that falling happens and you jolt awake. I'm a trained hypnotherapist, and it's quite common when doing therapy and doing hypnosis with clients that they go through that. Not everybody will get it, but every now and again you'll see it happen. It's an aspect of the altered states. So all it means is when you're in meditation and you're moving into that part of the altered state. You've just touched that part where that experience can occur. That's all it means. So is there any spiritual relevance to it? None whatsoever. It's just part of the altered state of awareness you're in. Hence it happens in sleep, hypnosis, various other conditions. For a while, when I was learning to do trance, I would move through a phase where it kept happening to me regularly when I was learning to develop trance. So if you like, as you deepen your states, there's a little zone you move through where that experience can be quite common. So that's the answer to that one. And another question I didn't get around to is, in your video on finding the recipient, you say to imagine the spirit person walking towards the recipient. Can this be done while working on Zoom? So in finding your recipient, there are a whole raft of tools you can use to guide yourself to the right person, of which that visualization is just one of them. We imagine we're working with spirit and we're sending spirit out to go and be with their loved one in the room. And it's just a tool to help you find direction. So does that work on Zoom? Because think about Zoom. You've got a screen with lots of faces on it. Now you may have several screens. If you've got 100 people in the room and 25 on a screen, that's 4 screens. It's going to be hard. You can't see everybody. So it makes it harder. But if everybody in the room is on one screen, then to a degree, yes, you could do it. You could be drawn. They could move you towards a part of the screen, an area of the screen, or a person on the screen. Absolutely. So it can work in Zoom. But for me as well, it's easier in person because there's an energy that builds within the room. That's the key thing. There's an energy that builds up in the room, and then that helps to guide you. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, let's have a look at all these questions. So I can see, Stacey, you've posted, better platform mediumship is great. Wonderful. Thank you for the vote of confidence there. Okay, Franny. A friend of mine says she has mediumistic abilities and feels, hears and sees spirits, but she's scared to open up because she sees scary images. That's to a degree, that's common. It's because we're rooted in fear and we have concerns about it. We don't understand it. What we tend to find is that once we start working with it, all that fear will diminish. And often people who have strong religious beliefs can have that fear about it. If you're constantly told that communicating with spirit is evil or a bad thing, for you to be able to do that, there's going to be a degree of trepidation. But there's absolutely nothing to be worried about. And, you know, as I said at the beginning, in my class on Can Anyone Be a Medium, we're all mediums, provided we put in the time, effort and ability. Some people just have the ability nearer the surface than others. But once we start working with it, things settle down. If we have scary experiences or things happen spontaneously, once we start to work with it and develop a degree of discipline, it will settle down. So if she's interested in developing it, we can encourage her to do that. But remember, people have to want to do it. We've all got free will. We can't make anybody do anything. You know, I know many people who come to mediumship but then move away again because it's not the right time. And I go into that in a great deal of detail in Can Anyone Be a Medium, about the idea of right timing. So hopefully that helps. You can talk to your friend about that. Stacey, when I'm given private reasons, if a client is very emotional and in grief, it really pulls me out of the power. Is there a technique you can recommend that can help me with this? Absolutely. Now, I do have a video called Working Emotions in Mediumship, I think it's called, or How to Work with Emotions in Mediumship. So I'll put a link again to that in the description once this is finished. I tend to do that the morning after, so it won't be immediately. But basically in that video, I go through how emotions affect us and where the emotions can come from and how to deal with them. But generally, you want to sidestep the emotion. We move ourselves out of the emotion, just as all those people who work in emotional roles, whether that's in emergency services, doctors, nurses, they're dealing with emotional things day in, day out. They have to move themselves out of it, what we call dissociation, so the emotion does not affect them. And that's what we're seeking to do with mediumship as well. So we recognize that the emotion is coming from the spirit world is not our emotion. We recognize that the emotion the recipient is feeling is not our emotion. And we recognize that as a medium, we are a blank canvas. We do not want our own emotion to surface. So when we feel emotion beginning to kick in, we distance ourselves from it, we step to the side, something, a process called dissociation. We remove ourselves from it, and it gets easier with practice, but that's what you're seeking to do. But if you have issues within your own life that trigger emotions, you've got to address them. You need to deal with them to make it so that you stay out of the emotion. So that's the simple technique, is to sidestep it, to recognize it. As soon as you recognize it, pull away from it. It's almost like distancing yourself a little bit from yourself. It's almost like, if you like, disconnecting the emotional attachment to self, just letting go of it, because you are the person who's there to bring the message. So hopefully that will help you. Okay, Aileen, could you please explain why we get live person? Get live person is their spirit person given information. I'm not quite sure what you mean, Aileen. I don't think the question, why we get live person is their spirit person given information. Okay, I think I know what you mean. So when we get a living person, I think that's what you mean. So why is it that we can occasionally link with the living? And again, I do have a video on this called Can a Medium Link with Someone Living? So I recommend you check that out. I'm only going to give you a very short summary of what I talk about in that video for some time. And there's a number of options. First of all, can you link with a living person? Yes, but generally only in certain scenarios. That the person is approaching their transition to spirit. They're on their deathbed, or they're very close to going. The person has a severe brain injury, or they're in a coma. And if you like, there's a foot in both worlds. Occasionally we can get a link with somebody living that doesn't fit into those, but often we find that there's somebody else behind it who's given the information to draw your attention as the sitter to that person. For example, if the person from spirit came forward and you wouldn't have recognized them, but they bring somebody that you've got in common, that means you'll start thinking about your loved one, but who's still living. You'll say that to the medium. And the medium's job is to then say, okay, is there someone bringing this information who can now give me evidence about themselves? So we found where we're going. We've got our direction now because we gave information about the living. But then when we start working with it, I'm getting this different information now. Oh yeah, I recognize that. Yeah, that's my great aunt. But yeah, had you given me that information straight away, I probably wouldn't have recognized her. So yes, so there's an intelligence behind it generally. That's what I'm trying to get across. But generally, someone living cannot communicate through a medium. We use the normal methods of communication. We use our voice, we use the telephone, we use the internet. We haven't really all developed the skill of linking into mediums to get our message across. It's far more convenient just to use the normal mechanisms, absolutely. So hopefully that helps it, but let me know if I haven't covered that in as much detail as you wanted. Okay. Christina, you're new and in Washington State, the United States. I need to know the exchange cost and how to pay. So my store takes payment through PayPal and also through Stripe, credit card payments and PayPal payments. You can use a credit card with PayPal as well. So the exchange rate varies daily, and I honestly do not know what it is at this moment in time. But if you go online and just type in currency converter, you'll be able to convert my pounds into US dollars, and you'll be able to figure it out. Generally, PayPal and Stripe don't give such good conversion rates. So it'll be adjusted slightly in their favor, but you get a pretty good idea. I won't try and Google it now because that's hard for me to do with all these screens. I'm not going to break anything. Absolutely not. If anybody who can Google it wants to post it in the chat box, what the current exchange rate is from pounds to dollars, that would be wonderful, but I'm not going to try. And welcome, Mark, and lots of other people who have joined. Rain, you're loving the Get a Better Evidence course. Wonderful. That's one of my favorites as well. They're all my favorites, really. They're all like my children, but I think that one's particularly interesting, of course. Judy, I bought a couple of books regarding Introduction to Mediumship. Can you recommend other good books, authors? I'll be purchasing your courses too. Now, the problem I find with books is it's hard. It's hard to recommend other mediums' books when their teachings don't always align with your own. And so it's hard, to be honest. There's very few books I've read that truly stand out. Harry Edwards' Small Guide to the Development of Mediumship is one that I will continuously recommend. It looks like that. That is my favourite book on mediumship, but very hard to get now. The usual places that sold it were the Arthur Findlay College shop, but they don't sell it currently. It's out of stock. But it is a chapter of Life in Spirit, and it is available from the Harry Edwards Healing Sanctuary in the UK, and they ship internationally. So if you look for the book Life in Spirit, this is just a chapter at the end of it that they've released as a single small thin book, but that's basically just a chapter of the book. So I recommend that. I'm quite fond of some of the Gordon Smith books. I like his teaching as well. Janet Nahavec, Where Two Worlds Meet, is another one that I like. But of course, there will be another book due this year. That's my job, to get it out, get it finished, get it out this year. My own book, my first book on mediumship. So that will be coming as well. There are numerous books as well on spiritual topics and teachings, like the Silver Birch books, and various books by people like Maurice Barbanel on This is Spiritualism, things like that I highly recommend as well. But it's hard. If you ask a whole bunch of people about books, they will give you a whole bunch of answers. But I think they're the ones off the top of my head that I would recommend. Maria. I was told not to ask spirit questions and to just surrender and let the spirit tell their story. I also heard that we need to be proactive and go get the information. Any advice? Getting better evidence course. I go into this in a great deal of detail. In the early stages, you can't just surrender, because it needs a brilliant blend and link with spirit. And you are creating, if you like, a framework within your mind, a loose framework of the type of things you want. So asking someone who's a beginner to blend and surrender ain't going to happen. You know, as a beginner, you've got to go looking. How did this person die? Who are they? What's the relationship? How old are they? So we start off by going searching and asking questions and looking. We look to see what we get. It's like we probe spirit to see what the answer is. But with experience and learning to get a good blend with spirit, what you then do is, I'm happy as long as I get enough evidence I can demonstrate who I've got. But I will just surrender to let spirit bring what they want to bring. But I've got to be capable of receiving it, remember. If you've not developed enough, you may not be able to receive what they want to bring as well as they would like or you would like. So generally, we start people with asking questions, 10 questions, 20 questions, call it what you will. And then we move through into different frameworks to move us ultimately to the surrender approach. I go through that in a great deal of detail, as I say, in my Getting Better Evidence course, and give you structures and techniques for working with that, if that's of interest to you. And funnily enough, it is on sale at the moment. It's one of the courses. Getting Better Evidence is one of the courses that is available in my holiday sale. All the courses are £55. It is the cheapest you'll get them, because all the prices will be rising as soon as the sale ends. So if you're interested, do check it out on my website. So, yeah. So ideally, yes, ideally surrender, but you've got to be capable of doing that. You've got to be capable of receiving the information. And in the early stages, most people can't. So we've got to move across the spectrum. Hope that makes sense. Stephen, I've watched your video on the differences between psychic and mediumistic links, but still struggle to tell the difference between the two and work. And any hints on how they are different for you? You will see generally with experience, again, this is the problem. To explain it to beginners, it's not easy, because beginners receive all information through the psychic senses. You receive all information through your psychic faculty. So psychic and mediumistic all are received through the same thing. That's important to recognize. So how do we tell whether it's psychic or mediumistic? First rule, where are you placing your attention? If you place your attention with the spirit world and completely blank and ignore the recipient, or you're not even talking to a recipient. If I'm doing platform work, I'm making my link with spirit and I'm working with spirit first, and then I'm seeking to find where I am. And then I have a link with the recipient. But until that point in time, I don't. But in a sitting, obviously, the person's walked through the door, you've got a psychic link. In a class, your sitters opposite you, you've got a psychic link. But if you place your mind with the spirit world first, where you place your mind is generally where the information will flow from. But then you've got to look for the subtle nuances about flow, if it feels different, if it works different for you, if it's flowing in easy versus hard. Now, someone who's really good at working psychically, it'll flow in easy for them. Someone who's really good at working mediumstic, maybe flowing in easier for them than the psychic. So again, there's no hard and fast rules. I know people say, oh, if it comes in quickly, it's psychic. If it comes in a bit slow, it's from spirit. But that's not true. It depends upon the individual. So it's hard to make hard and fast rules. But really, I'm struggling to think of any more tips that were in that video, to be honest, because I kind of covered that off in a good 10 minutes or more. I think experience is ultimately what will help you. What I would say is, when you're working with somebody and you're wondering, is it psychic? Is it mediumistic? And they tell you which one it is, then apply that to what you're getting and see if you can then start to see the changes in the energy and the feelings. But again, it depends upon your level of experience. If you're just a beginner, you're going to struggle, really. And even now, as an experienced medium, there are occasions when I get information psychically and I don't realize I've got it psychically, but I have. So we can't always separate it out. It's not always possible, but it's rare. It's rare. So hopefully that makes sense. Anastasia. I've seen people who had evidential readings at a large group, and those same people still are doubters. Why do you think people are still blocked from believing? Is it something in the brain? It's an interesting one. An interesting one. Funnily enough, in my talk on Seeing a Greater Reality, I talk about a scenario where I gave a guy a contact, and at the time he was believing, and then later on he didn't believe. You know, some people are naturally skeptical. Some people will seek to explain this away in as many ways as they can. They will. They will seek to explain it away however they can, rather than be forced to believe in something that might blow their minds, you see. Because if you recognize the reality of mediumship, you have to equally recognize that you will survive death. You have to then recognize that you are eternal. And that's quite a jump. Again, when I'm talking the talk on Seeing a Greater Reality, I go through this. This is the purpose of mediumship, is to open our minds and our awareness to something much greater, so that we live from that knowledge, that we realize that the petty things that happen in this world really don't matter, because we are eternal beings. So again, it's not easy, you know. And some people, if they're very rooted, grounded, material, very scientific minded, will want to explain it away. I've got a very scientific mind, as many of you will know. I've got a degree in physics, a master's in environmental science. You know, I spent a lot of time training a scientific mind. But I'm not easily led by anybody. I'm not gullible. If someone tells me that they're linked to spirit, they better be willing to prove it to me. And that's how, as somebody watching mediumship, I really needed my proof. I wasn't prepared to take just anything at face value. But it made it all the more powerful to me when I received my proof. That's the point. So sometimes it takes some powerful evidence to awaken people, but others, you'll just never awaken them. You know, the Randy $1 million prize, he'd always explain it away in some way. Even if genuine mediumship happened, he wouldn't believe it. So yeah. So some people are still doubters. I get that. And they're allowed to be as long as they want. Some people will hold out for a while. Some people may need a lot of evidence. Some people may never get it. It's their choice. Mark. When in between waking and sleep state, I get real-time clairaudience with my guides, but I can't seem to bring it forward in meditation or in trance. Any ideas how I can? Now the question is, if it's received between waking and sleep, you cannot prove it's clairaudience, I'm afraid. I'm sorry about that, but clairaudience is only where the information you get is given to a person and verified. Because within mediumship, because the thing is, hallucination is extremely common between sleep and awake. We dream, we hallucinate, things happen. Absolutely. You may perceive it to be a dream. It's a dream where you're receiving information, but you perceive it's coming from your guides. You know, it's hard to write it down because we're half asleep and half awake. So I don't want to diminish what you're getting, but the problem is there is no proof at all. So again, think about it. If you had that ability of clairaudience, it should function as well within your mediumship. Absolutely. Now, with meditation, don't go looking for communication from the spirit world. Not a good idea to begin with until you've reached a pretty reasonable standard of mediumship anyway. I work as a trance medium, but when I meditate, I never seek trying to have a conversation in my head with spirit, because, if I want to do that, I would much rather work with an inspirational state and try and set it up so it can function. But again, that's a whole different ballgame. If you're interested in that, check out my class Working with Inspiration, also part of the special module. But basically, again, I would rather do trance and record it, and then I can hear what was said. And then generally when my mind's not part of the equation as much, it'll be far more accurate. So yeah, it's hard. Don't try and do it in meditation would be my advice, because it's not necessarily good. Again, it takes a long time to develop trance. I've been developing trance now for 12 years. I'd say the first 2 years of my trance, even though I spoke, the quality wasn't there. Can I truly say it was spirit? There's elements of spirit in the mix, there's elements of me in the mix. It takes time. Generally, most people develop mediumship first and then move on to develop trance. You don't have to, of course. You can do it. But trance takes way longer to develop than mediumship. So hopefully that may give you some insights. It may not be giving you the answer you want, though, I suspect. And when people tell me, I get loads of clairaudience from my guides, and generally, I'm sorry to say, I would say that 95% of the time it's actually delusion or hallucination or wishful thinking or their imagination. That's my own experience of it. A lot of the people who got clairaudience going around in their heads all the time, when it's time to do mediumship and get information from spirit, it's hard to get them to work. I don't see much happening. They get the hump. They get upset. They get, I know I'm doing it, but I can't do mediumship. So what? It's like, yes, but if you're saying it's spirit talking to you and yet you can't work with spirit, that worries me immensely. See, this is where my scientific mind kicks in. What if it's happening, it should work across the modalities. It really should. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, Miss Silver. I'm having a lull in my mediumship. Any tips to block, de-stress, cut off from outside environmental stresses? Example, global issues, family issues. I'm feeling distance from spirit. Is this normal? When we have stress, then yes, it does affect our mediumship. Absolutely. Sometimes it's very wise to have a break from mediumship. If you lose a very close loved one, it's going to impact us emotionally so much that it's logical to step back, just have a little break, give yourself a bit of self-care. Absolutely. Any tips to block, de-stress, cut off from outside stressors? Basically, you've got to find out what works for you. When we talk about stress management, each one of us will have different tools that we can use to help us manage stress. Things that help calm us, things that may occupy our mind to deal with stress more easily. But we all have to find them for ourselves. But, a lot of people talk about meditation, different types of relaxation meditations. Anything you do that makes you feel calm, whether that's gardening, whether that's having a nice relaxing bath or a massage or whatever makes you feel calm, or just doing something totally different, engaging in art, engaging in pastimes that bring that sense of calm or take you away from things. Absolutely. But yes, if you've got a lot of stress, it's totally normal to feel distance from spirit, but just go with it. Don't try and force it to happen. Absolutely. So hopefully that makes sense. Anastasia, what are the first pieces of evidence you find the most compelling to give? And again, I don't teach this approach. Some mediums do. Or you got to get this bit first and this bit first and this bit first. And again, what happens then is you get mediums who work to a pattern and they can't break the pattern, and it's not helpful. So for me, what are the best pieces of evidence to give first? Good evidence, whatever good evidence may be. So I sometimes start with scenarios. I sometimes start with health conditions. I sometimes start, it could be anything really. I may just know I've got a man who's got dementia who got lost. That's my starting point. Another one is I've got a woman who would never apologize and she's come to apologize, and let's build it up. Let's work with her energy, what's coming through. I've got a man here and he's got COPD and I can see him on oxygen, breathing oxygen. That's maybe another start. But I'm not going to start with I've got a man here of average build, average height, grey hair, glasses, who's he had children, so he's either a father or grandfather, because everybody in an audience knows somebody like that. You'd be there all day. It's not good evidence. It's not specific enough. We train people that really first 5 pieces of evidence should really get you where you're going. Unless what you're saying is a scenario that is ultra specific and we don't want too many people in the room taking it. Got a man here who worked on a fishing boat at sea, and he had to stop working on that fishing boat when he lost his leg. That's, I'm happy with that. I wouldn't expect a room full of people to be putting their hands up unless you're working in a fishing port where everybody's family worked at sea. And then in that scenario, you might need a bit more than that. Absolutely. But I don't train people that first. You start, but okay, I will say one thing. Always start with the sex, gender, male or female. That's important. That's critical. Age is a good one as well because it helps people know where to look. I don't like descriptions unless it's interesting. I've got a man here who had alopecia when he was young. That's good. He's got no hair. That's good. That's interesting. But if you're just describing somebody who looks average age, average build, average height, average weight, you're wasting your time because you're given information that isn't helping you place it. Hopefully that makes sense. And I know some mediums who've been trained to start with description. And every single link just starts with an average description. And it's a waste of everyone's time and energy. And most people in a room, Miller's Law, people can remember 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information. So that means that's between 5 and 9 is the maximum number of pieces of information we can remember, generally. So work to 5 and you'll work well. That's what I always say. Okay. Next question. So if anyone would like their question answered early, you can use Super Chat and make a donation, and I'll get onto your question as the next one. If you want to support the channel, you can also do that through PayPal, link at the top of the screen. So let me see. If you want to just thank me for my work, you can use Super Chat as well. Okay, next question. In a reading, I've been asked if spirit gets angry with living people and why aren't they angry when I told them they didn't? What are your thoughts? Asked if spirit gets angry with living people and why aren't they angry when I told them they didn't? The thing is, spirit can see the big picture. They are no longer in the flesh. They've left behind this physical shell. They've moved on to a different viewpoint, a different vantage point. They see all the trials and tribulations of life. They see all the stresses that we have upon us. They see the frailty of human nature. They see how things can go wrong for people. So because of all of that, they generally they see more through a compassionate view, a more caring view, a less judgmental view. Not to say that that happens in an instant. That takes time. Absolutely. Spirit can't come through in an angry state and give us a hard time. They can't come and give us a hard time. They don't do that. If you like, it's not allowed. When someone comes through a medium, it's to come through and bring positivity and benefit and upliftment, not to make them feel worse than before the link. It doesn't mean that they're always entirely happy. If you're doing the same things time and time again and creating problems for yourself and problems for others, then there may be a degree of frustration with spirit that you keep doing this and you don't learn your lessons. I see that. I get that. I understand that. But generally, they're not angry at us. They understand that we're human. They understand why we do it. They may just wish we didn't do it. So I hope that helps you understand that. And so I've never had somebody come through from the spirit world being incredibly angry at somebody here. But I've had them come through and give advice that, they could benefit from changing their ways. Absolutely. But it's given in a loving, caring way. So I agree with that. Okay. Rain. How can I get better flow and finesse within my reading? I often get an image, pause, and then feelings regarding the image. I love to get it all without the silent pauses. First of all, keep talking. One of my videos on YouTube is how to practice mediumship, and within it I go through 10 tips on how to practice mediumship. And to keep the flow going, keep talking. If you give a piece of information, stop, your energy drops. It's harder to work. You have to then build it up and get another bit more, and then the energy drops. So when we keep the flow with our words, we can keep it going, but you've got to connect to spirit as well. Your mediumship is about power, the power to work for a long period of time. Power is the fuel. So no power, you'll struggle to work. People who have very bitty mediumship often haven't learned to build power through practices like sit in the power, and also the stamina building of just doing mediumship anyway. But also, I find as well, if we don't learn to connect properly to the spirit world, then it can be very bitty with pauses like that as well. So if you like, the power is the fuel, the petrol for your engine, and the connection is the ignition, is getting to the right level to make mediumship work. Some people can't quite get there and it doesn't function optimally. So again, it's like getting that connection right, making the connection happen. If you've got no idea how to do that and you'd like to learn more, my mediumship class 3 is connecting to spirit. That'll give you the clues. Also, the fundamentals of mediumship course goes into it. And of course, you can check out module 1 of the study program includes that as well. But ultimately, the flow comes with experience and keeping working with it. I'll share with you that I used to be quite a slow medium in the early stages. I never realized how slow I was, but other people told me I was. And I never really noticed the shift in speed, but other tutors would tell me that you're getting much faster now. It's flowing so much better for you. And I never really noticed it. And it's part of the process of unfolding and developing. So sometimes we just got to go with it. But again, when we're in our power, when we're in the energy of spirit, we've connected well, it will flow more easily. But again, all links with the spirit world, some are good links and easy to work with, some are not. Sometimes we get a fabulous blend and sometimes we don't. When it's not, it's harder. But there's no simple, easy technique I can give you to make it work. Otherwise, hey, we'd all do it, wouldn't we? It comes with just time and effort and practice. That's the best I can give you. Franny, you've got a UK pound is 135 US dollars. Thank you. Yeah. So therefore, yeah, so 55 pounds is 1.35. I have to get a little calculator out to do that. 55 times 1.35. That means the course works out about $74. Probably, I'd say it'd be nearer 77 by the time they've adjusted the exchange rate against you, which they do. Okay, Lorraine, what is your opinion on spiritual healing? For those that are proven mediumistic healers and the current requirement for spiritual healers to be recognized by insurance. So I am a spiritualist healer. I do healing both within the church and outside of the church. I think the problem is the word proven mediumistic healers is very, very difficult because very few people can truly, truly prove it to the extent that a scientific person would want. You know, I've given people healing and conditions have diminished and doctors have been amazed, but I cannot prove it was the healing that did it, especially if the person is receiving conventional treatment. Say someone has cancer and they're getting chemo or some other treatment, and they also receive healing and there's things improve dramatically. You can't say which aspect has created it. That's the point to bear in mind. But I know that healing does help, absolutely, otherwise I wouldn't do it. The requirement for spiritual healers to hold insurance is a very logical, sensible thing. I myself hold insurance in the UK. Many healers are part of the Spiritualist National Union or other bodies under UK healers. And the UK healers umbrella covering all these different bodies requires that all healers within those bodies maintain appropriate professional indemnity insurance and work to codes of standard, codes of practice. And I absolutely think that's logical. And if you purchase my DVDs or videos on spiritual healing, you'll see that I recommend that All healers need to maintain adequate insurance, because sometimes something may happen and you may face a claim and you need to be insured. And plus, you need to work to a standard. This is the key part. We do need to work to a standard, because there are so many people who take advantage of people through healing. I know of many, many horror stories where people have been abused through healing. So it absolutely, if you're part of a body, and you can have your qualifications removed if you misuse your healing abilities, then yes, I get that. So yeah, I agree with it. I agree with that completely. So Cynthia, I'm enjoying your full course, love it. I'm so glad that you do. That's the Course in Mediumship Study Program modules, for anyone wondering what the full course is. Okay, question. When giving readings, I will feel spirit's muscle memory, like someone swimming or knitting. Would this be blending with spirit? It's a form of clairsentience, when spirits superimpose what they enjoy doing on you. So, you may feel your hands doing this and they're knitting. And it's just like, you want to move the hands. Effectively, they're impressing you with the idea of knitting, and it's been translated into clairsentience, the feeling of knitting. That's what I believe has taken place. I'm not sure I would necessarily use the term muscle memory as such. But to be doing that, yes, you've got to be blending with spirit. Whenever we're working with spirit, we're blending with spirit. Whenever we're doing mediumship, we're blending with spirit. So that is blending with spirit, absolutely. So Lorraine, Glyn Edwards is a good read. Yes, I forgot to mention Glyn. I've got all Glyn's books behind me. Definitely is worth looking into. And his books have a very strong, what I would call, spiritual aspect, spiritual development aspect within them as well. They kind of like rise above just the mechanics. It's so much more than that with Glyn. Okay, Lorraine, how long does it take for our spirit to leave the ethereal body? Now, I'm not sure I actually understand your question. So we have a physical body, and when we die, we continue on as an etheric body. We continue on, some people call it the astral body, but so we continue on, if you like, as our spiritual counterpart. That's the point. So we have a physical body in this world. We take that moment of transition we call death. We leave behind the shell, the husk, but we continue on as a body that is recreated from our consciousness. Just like in your dream, you function within your body. The body is created from the memory in dreams of your true body. So the body you have in spirit, again, is that reconstruction from consciousness, from mind, as to what your body is. And you can reconstruct your body how you wish. You can reconstruct the younger version of you. You can reconstruct yourself at an age where somebody would recognize you. Say you know someone in the spirit world, but they only knew you as the young you. You can create that young you for them to recognize. But somebody else may have only known you in your later stage of life. You can appear to them as the later person. So that's all created through mind, through consciousness. So for me, basically, that body for me exists eternally. We create it from our minds eternally. I don't believe in reincarnation as such. I believe the fragment that is me, that is Martin, continues eternally to develop. I believe there's a greater oversoul, or a soul collective, a group, a part of a soul group that my experiences feed back into, whose knowledge as well I can access. Call it an oversoul, call it a group soul, call it what you will. But the person that is me will continue as a discrete individual consciousness. That's what I personally believe. But a lot of other people felt differently. So, whatever resonates with you. So I don't think we ever leave the etheric body. It's because that is a creation of mind. So it's not quite the answer you're expecting probably, but that's my understanding. Snowflake, you just got here, you want to learn, what's the first step to start? I'd say check out a lot of my mediumship development videos on YouTube. And if you're interested, you can go on to buy other videos, courses that I offer, if that's of interest to you. So do check out what I offer for free. I've been doing a whole series of videos recently on who can develop mediumship, how to develop mediumship, how to practice mediumship. Can you do mediumship by yourself? Can you do mediumship online? Best time of year to do mediumship. So the whole series on mediumship development, check those out and that'll give you an interesting start. And then also check out my Sitting in the Power playlist, because Sitting in the Power for me is an important part of developing mediumship as well. But certainly if you're interested in a course of mine, I point you at the fundamentals of mediumship. That's probably a good starting point, or mediumship classes 1 to 6 is similar type of content. So hopefully that helps. Aileen, I've seen a great trance medium now. She has started to use the same words in her everyday life. Is this her guide stepping in on her everyday life? I don't know, Aileen, and that's not a question I'm easily able to answer. What you would need to do is to ask that person. But the problem you've got then is you don't want to offend them, of course. So what I found is that the longer I've been doing trance mediumship, the more my views align with the views of my guides. Initially, in the early stages, some of what came through from my guides, I don't really agree with that. That's not my belief system. But over time, having heard lots of different information, my views pretty much align. But I wouldn't say my words ever sound like my guides, to be honest. Having said that, when I'm doing inspirational address, then yes, there's a lot of crossover then happens, because I'm being inspired by my guides. So of course that's going to happen when I'm working in a church doing an address or a spiritual talk where there's a crossover. Yes, I get that. But just going about your everyday life doing normal things, it'd be rare for that kind of wording to start infiltrating. Unless it's just a remembered words that have come through you in trance and you're remembering them and using them. But I don't know. It's not an easy one for me to answer without A, knowing the medium, and B, knowing the words, and C, putting it all together. So if you feel you're able to ask the medium that, then by all means ask them to do that. But I understand it could be a tricky one. Anastasia, fantastic answers, Martin. Thank you for doing this. My pleasure. As I say, if anyone would like to support the channel, then by all means check out my sale, check out the products I offer. If you want to make a PayPal donation to support the channel, you can do that as well, and Super Chat is available as well. If you want to get your question answered next, you can use Super Chat if you wish, and I will get onto it next. If you want to show your appreciation, you can use Super Chat as well. Ray, can you block out clairaudience? I don't know why you'd want to block it out is my first question. True clairaudience is very, very rare. So with clairaudience, we've got what I call true clairaudience, which takes a long time to develop, a long time to manifest, and generally all the other clairs will develop first. Clairvoyance, seeing, clairsentience, feeling, clair-knowing, just knowing, and then clairaudience is generally the last to develop really well. But a lot of people work with what I call perceived clairaudience, which is where their mind likes words, likes to hear words, and translate what they receive from spirit into words. I often see a medium saying, oh, and he's telling me he's in his 70s or late 60s or 70s. And spirit wouldn't do that. Spirit would say, I was 72. They might get their, if they were losing their mind towards the end, they might say, get 71 or 73 mixed up a little bit. I get that. But generally, spirit know their age. So if you're saying, oh, he's telling me he's in his 60s or maybe his 70s, no, you're feeling it. But you're translating it into words. It's your mind. It's called perceived clairaudience. And some people some people think mediumship should be a conversation from spirit. Some people think that they should be hearing things. So what happens then is you receive stuff from spirit, and because your expectation is it has to be words, your mind, your imagination, your mind just says, okay, we'll translate this to words for you. And you get it as words. It surfaces within your mind as words. And it's because there's an expectation there, or that's just the way your mind works. So that's clairaudience from the spirit world. But clairaudience, if we're not connected to spirit, we shouldn't be getting it. And if we are getting it, it may not be clairaudience from spirit. It may just be a creation of our imagination. It can be hallucination. I've known people who tell me they're chatting with the spirit world all the time and actually have some quite serious mental health conditions, hallucinations, schizophrenia, all sorts of things, where what is it they're experiencing is incredibly real to them. But the reality is it's not reality. That's the problem. It's not reality. It's very hard to tell people like that what they're experiencing is not real, because to them it is. Very hard to explain it, really. And if we have mental health conditions, it's not really a good idea for us to develop, to be honest. So can you block out clairaudience? As I say, I can't block out clairvoyance or clairsentience and the few bits of clairaudience I get when I'm working. But what I can do is turn myself off. I'm either on or off. Strict discipline, on or off. I don't have myself on a bit, if you want to come and talk to me, spirit, I'm ready, no. And there's no one there to receive it. What's the point? I'm either normal or I'm on. So I always talk about discipline, the strictness of discipline as well. And as mediums, we have to have that strong discipline of being either on or off. And again, I talk about that in one of my videos on the channel. Higher House, what's your thoughts on general mediumship, messages, etc., and physical mediumship? Do they work together or complicate, and best to stick to one or the other? Mental mediumship, evidential mediumship is totally, utterly different from physical mediumship. Physical mediumship really needs to be developed in totally different conditions. And physical mediumship, I'd say that is one of the few areas of mediumship where it's not the question of is it a gift or is it ability? It's a gift. Very few people are gifted with physical mediumship, in my experience. And true physical mediumship is very rare. I've been sat in seances with people who tell me that they're physical mediums, and quite frankly, there's so much delusion taking place, it's untrue. I see a lot of people take photographs of themselves in trance and say, oh, look, can you see all the faces? I'm a physical medium creating faces. And it's like, no, I can't actually. A lot of people can look at a pattern and see faces in it. There's I forget the terminology, there's a special terminology that applies to that, whose name escapes me. But anyway, it's a condition that certain people have. They can look at any image and see faces within it. I can't. I don't have that ability. I'm too grounded. I'm too scientific. I can't do it. If someone says to me, do you see the face in that and there's not a face, I'll say no. And they'll say, well, there's nearly a nose there and a mouth there and a mouth there. Nah. It's just your mind is just trying to, because we're so used, like facial recognition software, it's always looking for a face. Some people have a mind that is always looking for a face because we're hardwired to recognize faces. But the faces they're not necessarily real, you see. That's the problem. I've digressed. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of fluff out there, a lot of BS out there. Now, as a beginner should never even think about trying to develop physical mediumship. Not a good idea. Learn to do mediumship, learn to get to know your guides, whether that's evidential mediumship, healing mediumship, trance mediumship, doesn't matter. But all physical mediums I know who are good, genuine physical mediums became trance mediums first before they developed physical. Because it's a prerequisite. Yeah, there you go, Paradolia, that's the one, yeah. Thank you, Stacey, for telling me that. I know the words, I've got it written down in multiple places, but it's just one of those ones that you can kind of get off the top of your head. Paradolia, yeah, the seeing faces and patterns, and a lot of people have that. So for me, physical mediumship is not something that I would expect any beginner to develop. Of all the mediums in the UK that I know who are regular mediums, a fraction of them are trying to develop physical mediumship. Fraction of them. Am I a physical medium? No. I've not seen any evidence surface within me of me having abilities in that area. So, yeah. So, therefore, do I think they work well together? No, I don't. Can they complicate? Absolutely, because both take power. Do you want your power to fuel your evidential mediumship? Or do you want your power to develop physical mediumship? But if you try and do both of them, you're starting to spread your power too thin. It will make it harder for you. So they do interfere to a degree. Yes, I think so. So yes, if you're interested in evidential mediumship, develop that first. And then if you're interested in doing physical mediumship, I would argue that you ought to develop trance before you move on to physical. Now, I know that a lot of people talk about the new physical mediumship, which is all energy phenomena based and doesn't need to be developed the way things were developed in the past. But I haven't really seen much evidence of quality phenomena in that scenario. So the people who I know that whose physical mediumship I consider to be good, quality, genuine, were all trance mediums. I'm old school, so I'd stick to that approach. Hopefully that makes sense. Catherine, thank you for your super chat donation. I can see you've got a question there. Have you any tips on how to get more than one spirit to come through in a reading? I don't seem to be able to gain another for the recipient. So in a reading, we open to whoever wishes to come through. If there's only one wishes to come through, you're only going to get one. Depends how many people the recipient has in the spirit world. I also talk about the radio analogy within mediumship, that as mediums, we are like a radio receiver. Some may have long wave, medium wave, short wave. Some may only have short wave. Some may only have long wave. So it's rare that a medium can cover all wavelengths. So all of us generally are a subset of wavelengths. If spirits are different wavelengths, you'll only be able to get a few of them, not all of them. As a beginner, you can get even less. As a more experienced medium, you can get more. I hope that makes sense. So basically, it depends on how many people in the spirit world does this person have. Of that set of people in the spirit world, how many of them actually wish to communicate? That's another smaller subset. And how many of that subset are actually a good fit for you as a medium? And that's an even smaller subset. And if you're a beginner medium, it may only be one. So that's important to recognize as well. So how would you get another link? Simple. You ask, is there anybody else in the spirit world who wishes to come forward? You extend the invitation and then you see if there's anybody there. If there is nobody there, you can't make it up clearly. If there is nobody there, you've just got to go with the flow and give the one. But with experience, you find yourself getting more. I don't know what level of experience you are, but with more experience, it becomes easier to do. Again, how much power have you built? Have you got enough power to be able to do 2 or 3 links? If the answer is no, you're only going to get one. So the more power we have, the longer we can run. You know, if you can only do 10 minutes of mediumship and you brought one through in 10 minutes, then it's going to be hard to do another one and another one, another one. So again, it depends upon the degree of power we've built. So hopefully, I'd like to hope that all that will help to give you some ideas. But do I have any tips on how to get more than one spirit to come through in a reading? Simple, ask. Is there anybody else here who wishes to communicate? And if they come forward, they come forward. And if they don't, they don't. We can't really force it. That's the problem. We just let it happen. Let it happen. One technique you can use, but I'm loath to tell you this is a technique, but I will anyway, is you can always ask, who does the person want to hear from in the spirit world? And then you can send your thoughts. If you are available in spirit and you would like to communicate through me, please come forward. And occasionally that can happen. Sometimes I'm aware a sitter really wants somebody desperately and I've not brought them through. And I'll say to them, who do you want? And they'll tell me, and I'll say, okay, I'll try and get a link with them. And I usually do that about the halfway mark in. I don't do it straight away. But if sometimes what happens is I'll get a link, but it's not a great link. It's like a badly tuned in radio. And the reason they didn't come forward in the first place is because it's not a good link. It's a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it can be more harm than it's good to work with a link that's not good, because if that's a person they desperately want and you can't bring them through well, half me thinks I'd rather just bring them through when I can get them well. And also, if there's a lot of emotion with the sitter for that person coming through, then that can affect it as well. Say somebody's just lost their husband. They come for a reading, the person they really want is husband. But if husband came through immediately, the emotional energy for both parties may collapse the reading. So what will happen is somebody else will come through to help the reading to open, to flow, to build the right energy. And then when it's time, husband can come in. So I may be feeling you're not getting who you want. Who would you like? I'd like my husband. Okay, let me see if he's here. Okay. But by bringing the other people through first, it helps create the conditions necessary for it to flow. So again, I've gone off a little bit, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So I hope that that helps in some way. Okay, where was I up to? Okay, Christina, I have a sister that cannot communicate anymore. Can she be reached in any way to let me know how she is doing? Now, some people say, oh, people go to the spirit world, then they move on and they're no longer available to communicate through a medium. Not true. Not true. I don't believe that for one moment. Or some people say, oh, they got reincarnated. They're no longer there in the spirit world. They were reincarnated. I'm really sorry. You know, you can't get your loved one anymore. Not true. So why don't people come through from the spirit world? I have another video on my channel about this where I go through it in great detail. And again, remember, they've got free will. So they have to want to do it. There may be reasons why they don't want to do it. Because they have that choice. Remember, the medium has to be a good fit for the person coming through. Now, say your sister is so we've got a wavelength of people in the spirit world, and your sister's right at the edge, and not many mediums can do that wavelength. Maybe only 1 in every 10th medium could do that. And her energy is such that she's not a good fit for a lot of mediums. And only every now and again will they come through. You won't, and plus we don't hear from them all the time. And that's another thing that we have to consider. That one spirit have come through to let us know they're okay. Sometimes they'll step back a little bit to give us time to get to grips with their passing, to go through the grieving process. Like my mum used to come through a lot, and then she kind of pulled back, and sometimes I didn't hear from her for a year or two. It doesn't mean she doesn't love me anymore. It just means that she's, you know, whatever reason, she doesn't see the need to communicate. Some of my loved ones in spirit come through once in the blue moon. Some of them only come through once every 10 years or once every 20 years even. But it doesn't mean they don't like me or don't love me. No, not at all. Not at all. Just for whatever reason. And there are a variety of reasons. Absolutely. But if your sister is, if you like, on a wavelength that's challenging for a lot of mediums to get to, you have to go to a lot of mediums to try and get her. For example, somebody who goes to spiritualist churches all the time has told me that her mum has only ever been through a handful of times, even though she's been to, I don't know, 40, 50 services a year for decades. And her mum's only been through a handful of times. But funnily enough, whenever she comes through, she keeps coming through me. So, and she kept saying to me, why is it you always get her and nobody else doesn't? I can't explain it. But all I'll say is maybe I'm just the right fit for her. She knows I'm a good fit, so she'll come through me. And I don't ever remember her. You know, I'm not the medium who can remember the information I get and give it again. I don't do that. I actually have the trouble remembering what I've said at the end of the night. People come up and ask me about their messages, and it's like, I don't know which one that was. Was that the second, the third? I don't know what's going on. Because as soon as I've given it, I forget it. It's not for me to know. It's not for me to hold on to or remember the evidence or the messages. Sometimes, yeah, if it's profound, yeah, you'll remember it. But generally, a lot of the evidence, I'll forget it straight away. As soon as I've given it, as soon as I've worked the link and I don't need to hold on to it, let it go. So I'd say she hasn't gone, she hasn't left you. And I'm sure she will get in contact with you again, provided you give her the opportunity. But it may sometimes take quite a few opportunities to do that. Hopefully that helps you, Christina. Anastasia, in a group demonstration, I observe a lot of similar spirit people come through, for example, all suicides. Why is this? Is it planned on the other side? Not necessarily, no. But if people's minds are opened up to a concept, then it can happen. Some mediums, if you like, they specialize in traumatic passings or suicides. And what happens is they get a reputation in the spirit world for working with that scenario well. You know, oh, that medium, if you pass traumatically, go try and get through this medium because they understand it, they're compassionate towards it, they will never judge you. Yes. And they'll do the job well for you. We get, if you like, a reputation in the spirit world for how well we work with scenarios. You know, someone who's lost a child is very good at bringing through a child that's passed to the spirit world, because they have the knowledge, the experience. People who've lost loved ones in tragic scenarios, again, have that experience that they can work with it from a completely compassionate point of view, an understanding point of view. And you often find that they have that as well. Like, for example, I've not lost a child, and children don't routinely work through me, but if I have done demonstrations for groups who've lost children, like Helping Parents Heal, and brought through children, so it can happen, but it's not a routine thing for me. It's not part of my normal experience. So it could just be coincidence. It could be spirit are trying to show something. There may be a purpose behind it, but yeah. It's hard, really. So it's potential, it's planned, absolutely. But I'm not on the other side, so I can't say for sure. Okay, next question. Diana, I'm extremely slow in between getting evidence. Good evidence, but slow reader. Yes. That's common in the early stages. And we need to... The way we learn to do that is we need to multitask. We receive information from spirit and give it while still holding the link and receiving while we're giving. Because otherwise what we do is we get a bit of information from spirit, then we give it. Then we go back and get a bit of information from spirit, then we give it. Then we go back and get a bit of information from spirit, then we give it. And it's slow because you're having to learn to move backwards and forwards. With mediumship, we want to hold both links simultaneously and have it flow. Remember, the more you talk, keep the flow of speech going, the easier it gets. But a lot of it just comes with practice. The more we do it, the better it gets. Sitting in the power is good practice. When we drop the power, when we build the connection with the spirit world, we sit in the power of spirit, then it collapses, and we have to learn to build it again, and collapses, we learn to build it again. That constant learning to rebuild helps us to develop that multitasking. It's good practice for it, absolutely. Hopefully that helps. Ray, is there such a thing as psychic build-up if you're not using your gifts enough? I think if you're meant to be working with your psychic and mediumistic faculties and you don't, you can have, some kind of breakthrough, or you can have certain things happen, or it can create some challenges for you. I can see that, absolutely. I know a lot of people who have strange phenomena when they're developing and they're having that discipline of development, it just disappears. You know, I'm reminded of Matthew Manning, as some of you may know of, a well-known healer in the UK. He had the most amazing poltergeist phenomena documented in his book, The Link, which I just bought the other day and rereading again. Matthew Manning's The Link. Very interesting and absolutely phenomenal phenomena he got. Writing appearing all over the walls and poltergeist activity. But again, when you start developing your abilities, it settles down. If you like, it's very common with teens who have ability, very common. We as mediums, we don't have the same phenomena. It's not to the same degree for most people, but there are elements that things can happen. Things can break through a little bit if we're not working. So if someone has gifts that they should be using, they want to be using, my advice to them would be to develop them. And often the phenomena or strange occurrences just begin to settle down. That's generally what I find. So Lorraine, it's not logical to have insurance to be a healer. Now, the thing is, healing is a natural ability that I believe everybody has. Healing is just a compassion and love. If a dog is hurt and I put my hand on that dog and seek to help that dog in some way and seek to try and channel energy to help that dog, that's just natural healing. Do you need a qualification to be a healer? No. Do you need insurance to be a healer? No. Do you need anything to be a healer other than love and compassion? The answer is probably no. I get that. I see that. However, I also understand why it's wise that healers should be trained. Healers should understand the responsibilities. Healers should understand the ethics, and healers should understand, healers should be taught where people have abused healing. Like I know healers who've sexually abused people, several, historically. And they're doing practices that you wouldn't do. You would not, I won't get into detail, But let's just say if you were following codes of conduct, those scenarios couldn't have occurred. So yeah. You know, the insurance really is for our own protection, I'd say, and the protection of the public as well. And mediumship and healing go hand in hand. Now, for me, all healing, all mediumship has a healing element, a healing component, a healing energy. Absolutely. The purpose of mediumship is to create a healing, both for the person here and the person in spirit, or at least one party, if not both. But having said that, mediumship and healing are two totally different practices. Hands-on healing is totally different from evidential mediumship, and the way you develop them are different. You can develop both in parallel, but you've got to understand the mechanics and the processes are completely different. And if you try and do mediumship from the energy of healing, it won't work. If you try and do healing from the energy of mediumship, you'll find equally it won't work as well. We need to train each one. You know, it's just, we have to understand the mechanics of both and deliver them from the way they're meant to be delivered. Cynthia, thanks for answering my question. You're very welcome. And Aileen as well. Diana, have you ever felt a spirit jump in your body when giving a reading? It's happened to me twice. I wouldn't say jump in my body, no. Have I felt spirit come forward? Yes. But I wouldn't say jump in my body, because they don't jump in our body, they blend with our energy. So, you know, sometimes I'll be working and another spirit comes in. It's like they barged in, they push one out and another one pushes in. But it's still just blending with me to make me aware of them. I don't believe that we can ever be taken over by a spirit. I don't, you know, like you see in The Exorcist and things like that. That's the movies for you. You know, that for me just doesn't happen. But I can, yeah, spirit can draw very close to me. I can feel a heart attack. I can feel that I'm not able to use my arm, or I'm missing a leg, but they've not jumped in me as such. They're just blending closely with me. So I've never experienced them jump in my body. For me, it'd be a close blending. But maybe you have, and I wouldn't want to take away your experience neither. Okay, Anastasia, if someone died then reincarnated on Earth or somewhere else, is it an aspect of them that remains in the spirit world that comes through to you, the medium? Now, I don't believe in this cycle of reincarnation. I don't believe that we get to the spirit world, have a short period of time off for good behavior, and then, sorry mate, back you go, reincarnate. I don't believe that happens. I spoke earlier on about this concept of the group soul. Or you can call it the oversoul. I'll try and show a little diagram here to make you understand it. So say this bottom corner here, where my finger is here, say that's you. You belong to this group of souls, or this oversoul. These individual circles are all individual lives. So you're this little splodge here. That's you. You are a part of this greater oversoul or group of souls. You come to the earth now, you have your earthly life, you pass, you go back to spirit. Now you remain a separate entity. In my belief system, the way I understand it, you continue on as this separate entity with a separate consciousness, your own experiences, your own development. But you are also at the same time remain a part of this group of souls. So the energy, the knowledge base of this group or this oversoul, all of your knowledge is part of it. And a lot of that knowledge as well, you have through your connection to it. But then that group, the next life will be another fragment of it, or another soul, sub-soul of that group will go out for another experience. So say if there is a reincarnation upon the earth from this oversoul, it's not you, it's another part. So you always continue. You always exist in the spirit world. When I asked my guides, is it possible to reincarnate? They said, yes, it's possible, but very, very few people ever will, for there is no reason to. In a world of worlds where there are phenomenal amount of worlds. Why would you always go back to the same place? Why would you always come back to the earth? The earth is not the only place where physical lives are possible or where mental lives are possible, because the spirit world, remember, we exist in the spirit world as consciousness, as mind. You may argue we exist as consciousness, as mind here, because we do. However, it's consciousness bound within the vehicle of a physical body, which gives us unique experiences. But there are a multitude of worlds where we go. There's a multitude of worlds where we can go for further experience. There's no need to keep repeating lives upon the earth unless you truly want to. You know, if you came to the earth and your life was cut short and you felt you never got a full crack of the whip, so to speak, you may be allowed to come back. If you'd passed 2 years old through an illness, then yes, you may be allowed to come back again. There's reason for that. But my guides and many other guides as well, including Silver Birch, have said that in general there's no real reason for that to happen, because there are so many other ways of gaining experience as well. So I hope that that helps explain that a little bit. So I believe that my mum's passed the spirit world. The mind that is my mum, the consciousness that is my mum, the aspect that has all that experience as my mum does not reincarnate. However, the oversoul that my mum is a part of, other parts of that will go on and have lives and could reincarnate upon the earth, absolutely. But not my mum. My mum is now in the spirit world, and my mum is now having experiences in the spirit world. And if you like as well, there's the iceberg theory. I'll better tell you this one as well. So that's the part of the soul that is having the physical experience, and the oversoul, that's the part that's beneath the water. And the next life that this oversoul has, it will be a part of it, but a different part. So that part is the bit that's above the water, and the rest of it is below the water. So if you like, it's just, again, it's a similar concept to the fragmented soul theory, or the group soul theory I've just talked about. So hopefully you get the idea. But it's the same soul just does not need to be on a hamster wheel. It's more sophisticated than that. It's more interesting than that. Absolutely. So I hope that helps in some small way. Hence, as mediums, we can always connect with the person in the spirit world, because the aspect that is them remains always. Stacey, that happened to me recently with a husband. The whole reading collapsed. Good learning for me. Absolutely, yeah. It's happened to all of us. You know, we learn through experience, and we learn that actually there's a part of us that wants to get straight away the person they want the most. And when we try that, the whole thing falls over and we go, it's too emotional for them. I see now. And now if we just leave it to spirit, let them do what they want to do. And yeah, they know how to do it best. I always leave it to them. Absolutely. Do you offer online sessions like this, but one-to-one? Sadly, I don't know. I'm afraid that's not possible. I just offer these group sessions where I do it in a public domain, YouTube. You can come along, hear the questions and the answers, and everybody else can also come along and learn from it as well. I don't do one-to-one sessions, I'm afraid. Krista, this is all great. Thank you. You're very welcome. Diana, thank you. You're welcome. Veggie Girl, I find it easy to have my eye closed. How do I keep from being distracted with my eyes open? Simple. Don't learn to do it with your eyes closed, because what happens is it becomes a conditioned habit. As mediums, we think that it's easier to do mediumship with our eyes closed because we can then see images on the screen of our mind with our eyes closed. The truth is, you can see images on the screen of your mind with your eyes open or closed. If I imagine you to imagine your front door, you can do it with your eyes closed and imagine your front door, but you can also do it with your eyes open and imagine your front door. However, most people think if they shut their eyes it'd be easier, but it's the same. But when we're working as a medium, We need to see what's going on in the room. When we're working as a medium, we need to see the responses of the sitter. When we're working as a medium, to have a connection, if you work in public and doing demonstrations and services, you've got to have a connection with the audience, eyes open, always. So I always train people in my classes, in my sessions, eyes open. If someone's shutting their eyes, I ask the audience to tell me that they're shutting their eyes if I'm behind them. Let me know if their eyes are shut, grass them up. And or if I'm watching somebody and they're shutting their eyes in groups, I'll go around and ask them to open their eyes, because otherwise you'll train yourself to do it with your eyes closed and it won't be helpful. An experienced platform medium, I was once doing a course, was all mainly quite advanced people, and I was put to do a reading with another experienced medium, and she gave me a reading lasting about 10-15 minutes. And she delivered the whole thing with her eyes shut. She never opened her eyes and looked at me once. And she never once asked me for any feedback. She just talked at me for 10 or 15 minutes. And at the end, she opened her eyes and said, "How was it?" I said, "I couldn't take any of it." She said, "Well, why didn't you say?" And I said, "If you'd opened your eyes and looked at my face, you'd have known the fact I'm going, no." She probably didn't like me, to be honest. But I thought the learning was more powerful if I kept my mouth shut and just wait till we get through the whole thing. Because, you know, and if you don't ask me for an answer, I might not give you one. And there's a lot of recipients who are like that. Don't expect them to feed you information. So you've got to ask, you know, are you understanding this? Is this making sense? Can you understand who I've got? Do you know who this is now? But if you don't ask any of those questions, don't be surprised if the person doesn't know. But there you go. I've digressed again, like I do. Valerie, I've just recently been seeing Victorian people at night and on occasion tutors as well. Could this be visitations? I don't know, Valerie. I don't know why that would happen, to be honest. If I'm applying my logical, scientific, rational brain, I don't know. You know, it doesn't make sense for people to come forward unless you know them, or it doesn't make sense for people to come forward unless there's a reason, a connection to come forward. You know, you may be picking up upon the energies of residual energies that may be associated with places. Say you go and stay in a hotel, it's an ancient hotel from Tudor times, and you're aware of a Tudor person come into your mind, then yeah, you could be picking up upon the residual energies of that building. But I don't really understand why it would happen just at random in your house at night. Could it be spirit? Potentially. Could it be your own mind? Potentially. I don't know. So it's not a question I could easily answer. I've never had such experiences myself. So it's hard to understand them when you've never had them. Diana, wasn't blending. They stepped in my body like on Movie Ghost. Wasn't a negative feeling. Well, I'm glad it wasn't a negative feeling. But I guess sometimes, you know, if it's a powerful, strong blending, it may just feel that they're there, whoosh. So I get that, yeah. When you're teaching mediumship to students in person, do you share the link that the student is getting, and how does that work? There's 3 different ways of doing it. Generally, if you're working and you're teaching, you've got to be able to link into the students. And there's 3 ways of linking in. The first one is the best, and I don't know how it really works because it only works some of the time. And it's like I get everything that they get at the same time. It's like you tap off the link and I see the image they see, and I understand, and I'm having to work with it the same as they do. And it's like I know exactly what they're getting, how they're getting it, and when they're making a mistake, because I'm getting it all the same. But that's rare in my experience. That's, well, 1 in 20. Occasionally it happens. I call it tapping off the link, but it's very hard to do consistently. And talking to other tutors, very few have that happen consistently. We've all had it happen a bit, but not consistently. So that's the ideal. That is, if you like, that's the goal to aim for. More commonly, we make our link to the same spirit person. So as soon as this person's got that link, I ask the person to link with me as well, and I set my intent to link with them, and then quickly check out what I'm getting. Yeah, I've got the heart attack. I've got that. Yeah, got the same link. And then I can, like, if they're getting it wrong, I can feel into it to check. So I'm just a separate link into the same tutor. Sorry, to the same spirit communicator. So they're linking with the student, and then I'm linking as well and receiving information separately. And again, if I'm working with another medium on platform and we're both working with the same spirit communicator, that's how it works. I'm linking into the same spirit. That's how it works. So I don't always get what they get, but if they're getting something, I can push into it to say, okay, you're getting that, let's push into it. Let's look for that. Ask them to give it to me. So yeah, we can do that as well. So also as well, then the third mechanism is where we psychically link in to the person who's working. So they're receiving information from spirit and we're linking into them psychically to feel what they're getting, to sense what they're getting. It's a lesser version of the first one I talked about, where we tap the link off and it's amazing. The psychic version is we're feeling into their energy to see what they're getting and working, and you can help them that way. My preferred way is one of the first two, where I'm linking into spirit, because with the psychic, you've got to have a strong psychic ability, and not everybody does work strongly psychically. So yeah, so there's three mechanisms primarily that I'm aware of. But you know, if you're going to work as a teacher and you're going to be able to help people, you've got to link in as well. That's important. Higher house, I mean, paying for a private reading, but just talking instead of the reading. Yeah, and understood that. Yeah, absolutely. I don't offer sittings at the moment due to other time constraints and the fact I'm trying to get my book finished this year as well. So sadly not. But I know there are lots of mediums who will do that for you if you want to check that out. Rain, I'll never close my eyes again. Love your answer. Yeah, it's good training because you don't develop the conditioning. It's like Pavlov's dog. What happens is you always associate eyes closed with linking to spirit, and then it becomes problematical because it's hard to do with your eyes open. You're having to completely unlearn a profound habit you've developed. If you don't do it in the first place, it's way easier to move beyond it. Absolutely. Christina, recently I received a message of caution. At the time it was not evident to something specific, but a week later something happened that gave me the aha moment. Yeah, it's I'm not really sure what the question is on that, but those things can happen. Where they're coming from, could it be a loved one in spirit? Could be. Could it be one of your guides and helpers? Could be. Or could it just be you're psychically picking up upon something that you need to be more consciously aware of? Could be any of those mechanisms. Absolutely. Rain, how often and when should we sit to blend attune to spirit? Can it be done immediately after sitting in the power, or should it be done alone? So blending and attuning to spirit is what we do in the second stage of sitting in the power. But we're blending with the spirit realm as a whole, not with individual spirit communicators. So when you're doing sitting in the power, for me, the first part of sitting in the power is to sit in the power and blend with the energy of our own soul, to recognize our own soul energy, so that when we get information from spirit, we know what our energy feels like and we know what spirit feels like. Second part is we move to blend with spirit. Not any specific spirit communicator, but the spirit world. And we sit in the energy and the presence of the spirit world. And that's what helps us to build power, and it helps to unfold the potentials within. And it gives those in the spirit world who belong to us an opportunity to, who work with us as guides and helpers, an opportunity to blend with us and get to understand our minds, get to understand our energy, get to understand us. So check out my Sitting in the Power playlist. Number 1 is why we do it. I've just pretty much told you why. Number 2 is how to do it. Number 3 is commonly encountered problems that beginners experience. And number 4 is commonly encountered problems for those who are more experienced and been sitting for a lot longer experience. And then the 5th one actually is a short version of Sitting in the Power, which allows you to attune to both. So if you're going to blend and attune to a spirit communicator, the only time you would do that is when you're doing mediumship, when you've got a sitter in front of you. There's no point trying to blend with spirit communicators when there is no sitter in front of you. And again, I take you back to how to practice mediumship, my video, 10 tips on how to do it. Because basically, why should someone come forward from the spirit world if there's nobody that you have that belongs to them in front of you? There's no logic to it. Why would a random spirit person just appear in your mind if you can't give the information to get it checked out? So you should blend and attune to spirit when you're sitting in the power as the second stage, and you should blend and attune to spirit when you're working with spirit, when you're either doing mediumship, healing, trance, inspiration, but there's no point doing it by yourself when you're not trying to do any of those tasks. Does that make sense? I hope it does. And should it be done alone? You can do sitting in the power in a group, absolutely. But it's always an individual experience for you. To be honest, the group energy really just creates more of a discipline, I find. When people have come together as a group to sit in the power, it's a discipline of doing it together. But everyone's having their own unique experience blending with the spirit world. That's the key to understand. Okay. Anastasia, what is your book about? Can't wait to be able to purchase it. Basically, it's an introduction to mediumship. There's going to be a few books. The first one is basically the introduction to mediumship. An introductory book for what, just it parallels pretty much a lot of my courses. Module 1, fundamentals of mediumship, etc. Just a lot of the same content. So it would just be, if you like, a manual for mediumship that people can use to go along with my courses, and it'll give you a lot of the basics. That's the idea. Veggie Girl, you look forward to the book. Wonderful. And hello, Sav. So we ran out of questions, so we're coming to the end of questions. So just a reminder for you then, if you've not seen my previous videos I've released since the last question answer, they are Can Anyone Be a Medium? And also a talk on seeing a greater reality. My holiday sale is on and runs till the 2nd of, let me see if I can pull it up. It runs till the 2nd of January, and all my pre-recorded courses are in there, reduced. Also, all the study program modules are there, reduced. A Rainbow Journey and Sitting in the Power downloads are also on special offer, reduced as well, if you're interested in them. And yeah, check them out if that interests you. Okay. Sav, what do you charge for a reading? At the moment, I'm not doing readings, so I cannot answer that for you because I'm not doing them. Catherine, where do aliens or extraterrestrials fit in the spirit world and us as souls and mediums? Well, when you think about it, what is an extraterrestrial? It's a being from another planet. We live in a vast universe that is beyond our comprehension. Many billions upon billions of stars and planets. We'd be pretty crazy to think that in a universe of billions of stars and billions of planets, that we are possibly the only inhabited planet that exists. So do I believe aliens or extraterrestrials exist? I believe they have to. The fact that guides talk about there are other places we can have physical experiences gives the clue. Absolutely. But do aliens communicate with us through mediumship? Not easily. The guides say that to be a guide of somebody here, you have to understand the earthly condition. If you like, the prerequisite for someone to be your guide is somebody who has lived upon the earth, so they can understand you as a medium and what you go through and how it is to live upon the earth. So that, for me, is a prerequisite for a guide to work with us. So it doesn't make sense that we have aliens as our guides. It doesn't make sense for that reason alone. But, and also aliens would never present themselves as an alien. They'll just present themselves as a consciousness, a mind from the spirit world. Because, we can't comprehend of aliens because we don't know of any. We don't know of any inhabited planets or aliens. Yeah, okay, there's UFOs, sightings and all the rest of it. And things like the Roswell incident. But it's hard for us to comprehend it. So we don't need to. It's really as easy as that. So do aliens and extraterrestrials fit? Yes. Are there souls, spirits, consciousness in the spirit world, which is vast, that may have existed upon other planets? I'm absolutely convinced there must be. Absolutely. But do they need to communicate with us? Probably not. Okay, let me move on. Hi-hats. When doing a reading, do you think we are communicating with spirit themselves, as in multiple spirits, or with our own spirit guide, and are they relaying it to us? No, we're communicating with spirits. The old view taught many, many years ago was the guide as the middleman. It all came through the guide. And the idea was that that's your guide, that's the medium, and that's the spirit. And the spirit tells the guide, and the guide tells the medium. The guide gives it all to the medium, like Chinese whispers. But that, for me, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'll tell you for why. Let me show you the reality as I see it. So for me, this purple one is how it works. So this is the spirit communicator here. This is the medium here. So we're working directly with the spirit communicator. And the guide oversees the whole process. The guide is able to communicate with the spirit communicator, and the guide is able to also impress us as well. The guide is aware of our thoughts. We can communicate our thoughts to the guide as well. Let the guide know, something's going wrong. It's not working very well. Can we help to change the conditions, make it work right? But basically, we are working with a spirit communicator. That is the modern view. And the reason for that is that I feel different energies with different communicators. I feel different personalities with different communicators. If it was all coming through my guide, I wouldn't feel those changes. So obviously, I'd be linking with my guide's energy, and it'd be flat, it'd be steady, it'd be stable, and I'd be getting the same information. But the fact that I feel totally different, personalities, energies, and they respond immediately. There's no time for the Chinese whisper. How did you pass? Heart attack. It's instantaneous. If it's coming through a guide, there'd be a delay, and it would slow mediumship down. It doesn't make any sense. So for me, that is old hat, very old teachings. I don't believe it for one moment, I'm afraid. So hopefully that helps. So Sav, do I do readings or only teach how to now? So I do readings, but I tend to do them within spiritualist churches, and I don't do many because I most of my time I spend either doing demonstrations or teaching. So I don't do as many now. I do a few still. I like to keep my hand in. I also find as well, one of the problems I had was that most people who wanted a reading off me were actually people in development who just wanted to see how I worked, not people who genuinely wanted a contact from their loved ones, which is different, you see. So I just now work on a much smaller scale with the readings, like a lot of mediums do, because otherwise you get so many requests, it's impossible to. I had a waiting list that was basically got well beyond a year and a bit, and it just became crazy. So it's easier just to restrict it pretty much. And I need to get the book done now. So this year is the year of the book, so I'm gonna be focusing more on the book. Who's the one person I've learned from that I would recommend looking into besides myself? See, the problem you have with that is I don't think any one person has the answer. Now, I did a lot of my own training at the Arthur Findlay College with many different tutors. I know some people who would always go to the same tutor, but I used to like going to all of them because I believe we learn something from all of them. So if I was to tell you to go to this medium, you may find that medium is not the right medium for you at all. And I was never trained by only one medium, so it wouldn't be right for me to point you in the direction of only one. Plus, I don't point people in the direction of mediums who I've not been taught by. A lot of the mediums that I spent a lot of time with, I had quite a bit of teaching from Colin Fry, who's now in spirit. Again, I went on a number of courses with Glenn Edwards, who's now in spirit. So it's challenging. A lot of the other teachers I've spent time with aren't teaching as much now. So it's hard. A lot of the current teachers, some of them are colleagues of mine who went through the programs at the same time as me, and I've not really been taught by them. So it's hard. It's hard to recommend people. And plus, if I recommended one to you, all the other people who taught me and the other people who are my colleagues would would probably get the ump with me. They'd probably say, why do you recommend them and not me? So I'm going to politically not recommend anybody. But if anybody is approved as a tutor of the Arthur Findlay College, I think that is a good endorsement. Absolutely. I'd go with that. So I would recommend Arthur Findlay College tutors as a whole. That's my answer. So as not to upset anybody. What would you suggest if you're having a hard time learning your guide's name? Don't even try. I don't know my guide's names. Don't need to know my guide's names. It's not relevant. Because what is a name? My guides tell me that know us for who we are, know us by our energy, know us by our teachings. Names are irrelevant. They'll bring any name you want. You know, you can call them anything you like and they'll respond to it. So, you know, people get hung up upon, what is my guide? What are they? Are they a Native American? Are they this? Are they that? In the vast majority of cases, they are none of that. They are an evolved soul who brings wisdom. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they bring different energies. For example, child guides are not really children either. They show themselves as children to create conditions needed for physical seances or if you're doing trance, to create an energy within the room. But often they're not. They're not. They're just, you know, they think the next several mediums, child guides, have just flicked into being adults and brought through the most profound wisdom, and then just flick back to being the child guide and laughing about it again. And you go, wow, they're not child guides at all. They're not. Why would they be? So don't try and pigeonhole your guides into any persona. Don't try and pigeonhole your guides into names. If a name comes, yeah. Be careful of mediums who give you your guides, because I've been given everything from Aborigines to Zulus, and very few of them have actually got any accuracy. So now I don't actually believe I have guides that are Native Americans or Buddhist monks, or, you know, there can be elements of that about guides, as in the sense of archetype, the Native American wisdom, the Buddhist tradition, the nun, the ancient Egyptian. Elements can come in, but it doesn't mean that's what they are. You know, think about it. If you've lived many lives in many worlds, why would you take the persona of one only? You wouldn't. You are all of them. You are all aspects, and you are all of it. You are the combined whole. You are the developed soul, not... You don't associate yourself just with that lifetime, that experience. That's why guys so rarely don't want to talk about their lives and their experiences, because they're not relevant. It's like me saying I'm going to define you by who you were when you were a child. No, you've moved beyond it. You're now an adult. You've now had huge numbers of experiences since you were a child. Why would I want you to define you as a child? No, you're not that child. So hopefully that helps. Okay. I love that answer. Thank you. I asked because I was told I don't know enough and need to keep learning. This was by a teacher, so thank you for the truth. We're all learning, and we have to find the right teacher and teachings for ourselves. You know, what I teach may not resonate with everybody. Some of you may have left this room because, hey, this guy, everything he says doesn't resonate with me. And that's great. And if my teachings do resonate with you, that's great as well. And, you know, but we always need to keep an open mind. Nobody has the answers. I don't believe I have the answers. I have a lot of experience, but not necessarily all the answers. And I'm willing to admit when I don't have the answers as well. We are always forever learning, and that is an important part of our development. When we feel we know it all, that's when the biggest risks happen, because, you know, we can delude ourselves when we think we know it all. Yeah, so you don't need to know guys' names. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I've been working now with my guides for, as I say, probably 12 years in trance, and I don't know their names. And they're not that bothered about giving me names. And sometimes we don't even know who's communicating. Some of them have similar energies, and it doesn't matter. I'm not even that bothered who communicates. You know, some of them really do have a strong personality, and some of them do have a name, to be honest, because they do come with that aspect to themselves. But others, their energies merge, and something the guides have done that is really impressive is they can just keep talking. I keep talking, but they all come forward, just moving in and out randomly, so that the people in the room are aware that my voice keeps changing and different guides are there, but the flow that came through never stopped, never changed, never moved. It just kept coming, even though the personalities moved in and the voices changed. And what they were showing is that it's a collective. It's the collective of minds that is communicating, not an individual persona a lot of the time. And with that collective, they are able to bring the knowledge. So, you know, we often hear guides as talk about a group or a group, and that's why they say that. Judy, I ask my guides for signs, but never get any. Why? Again, that's not an easy question to answer. If we have an expectation that our guides should give us signs, why should they give us signs? I have no expectations whatsoever that my guides give me signs. A lot of people, oh my God, there's a robin there, there's a butterfly there, it's a sign of my guide. No, it's a robin or a butterfly. That's just the way, that's nature, that happens a lot. So I would question whether we need signs. You know, what happens when you don't get a sign? You've had a sign. What happens if you become reliant upon it? No, I need a sign. Before I can do anything, I need a sign. And guides don't run our lives for us. They don't save parking spaces. They don't, we have free will and choice in our lives. So for me, spirit are there when we need them, when we want their help. They're always there. We can open to inspiration and guidance from them. But I don't open to signs from them because I don't need them. So if I want spirit's advice or guidance, I can use my developed mediumship to do that through inspiration or even the trance state. So yeah, I would say, relinquish the need for it, and then you haven't got a problem. But if you really want to get to know your guides, sit in the power and invite them to draw close, get to feel their energy, get to know their energy. If you want to get to know your guides, learn to blend and connect with them through inspirational writing and inspirational speaking. Learn to allow them to be a part of your life. But don't ask them to save you a parking space at the supermarket. Or don't ask you to flash up a name so that you know they're around you, because that's hard. Just get to know them. Just invite them into your life. Be a part of it. Absolutely. Higher house. If I'm seeing smoky typed energy around quite often, is this spirit in its raw form present, or is it spirit creating the energy for spirit to come through to work? I honestly don't know. I've never heard of that before. For me, I never see smoky energy, nothing like that. How do you know spirit is around? You link with them and you get information that shows they're there. It's as easy as that. Absolutely. Unless you're trying to develop physical mediumship, where you're trying to get materialization, which would be way down the line of developing physical mediumship. Generally, you don't need anything like that. It's not necessary. So, sometimes in seances, a spiritual mist can build. It's kind of the first precursor to materialization of spirit, or phenomena for that matter. But it doesn't necessarily mean spirit's there. It's the energy creating and condensing. So to answer your question, I cannot deny anybody their experiences, but I cannot explain them either. So we always have to find out for ourselves. Only time will tell what things mean for you. That's what I always say. And ask spirit. Ask spirit to give you more understanding. Sit with spirit for answers. That's what I would do. When people tell me, I had a meditation and this happened, what does it mean? I would say, I haven't a clue. You need to figure out what it means for yourself, and you need to sit with it. You need to work with your team in the spirit world, and you need to ask what it means. You need to find it for yourself. I'm a big fan of Gordon Higginson. Many of you know I built the Gordon Higginson tribute site and uploaded quite a lot of videos and audios on the internet and YouTube. And he would basically get everyone to go away and find things out for themselves. He would never spoon feed you. He would never give it you on a plate. If you'd say, how do I do this? He'd say, go and find out. When you found out, tell me. Because that was more profound than trying to tell somebody how he did it. Everyone needs to find out how everything works for themselves. That's why I always say, whenever people bring an experience to me that is not something I've experienced or come across routinely, I can't ever deny anybody their experience. No one can ever deny you your own experience. If it happens to you, it happens to you. But the best people to explain it is to go within and to work with your team to get to understand it over time. Sometimes it takes time before you understand what it's all about and what it means. For a while, I used to get really strong psychic impressions from people. I could touch somebody and feel their pain. And then later on with healing, I began to learn that that was something I needed for my healing. That when I'm actually working with people, their condition is superimposed upon me so that I know what we're working with. So the clues develop down the line. But when it happens in the moment, we're kind of scratching our head thinking, what's going on? And you ask people and they're scratching their heads. No one really knows. But we find out for ourselves over time. So be your own explorer, your own adventurer, and find out for yourself what it all means. And if that's a cop-out, so be it. So that's the last question. So I'm going to bring it to an end now. So I'm going to thank you all for coming. I do hope you've enjoyed this question and answer class, this mediumship clinic. As I say, I've been doing clinics now. I like the term mediumship clinic because it's any challenges you're facing in your development with your mediumship, with your development, you can bring, and you can get the insight knowledge of somebody who's got more experience. And so for me, I like that terminology. I've been doing them on SNUI since about 2009-10. And yeah, so I shall be using that terminology moving forwards for my Q&As. So the next class, next Q&A, next clinic will be on Sunday the 23rd of Jan, if you want to stick it in your diary. So do come along to that. As I say, do check out my sale. It runs until midnight Pacific time, US Pacific time on Sunday evening. So for many of us in the UK, that would run till Monday, 8 hours later or so. So hope you found it helpful. Hope you got lots from it. And I shall look forward to seeing you all again in the next class. Take care, everybody. Nice to see you all. Bye for now.